Violence from drug cartels forces residents of Mexican border town to flee. Stealing from a cartel is like signing your own death warrant. These 5 people learned that lesson the hard way, facing brutal consequences that left the world shocked. From corrupt cops to a reckless party goer, their fates were sealed the moment they crossed the wrong people. Our first story is about a man who made the biggest mistake of his life at a party. Eric Tadeo Ramirez thought he had pulled off the perfect crime. He stole $50,000 from the Cartel del Noreste, a dangerous Mexican cartel, and believed he was safe because he was in the United States. But he made one huge mistake. One night in March 2023, Ramirez was at a party in Laredo, Texas. He was on the phone with a woman telling her about the money he had stolen. He even said he wasn't scared because he was in the US, thinking the cartel couldn't touch him there. But someone overheard his conversation. Word spread quickly, and within hours, the cartel found out what he had done. At around 12:45 a.m., a blue Dodge Ram truck pulled up outside the party. Masked men with guns stormed inside, grabbed Ramirez, and dragged him out. He tried to fight back, but there was nothing he could do against armed cartel members. They threw him into the truck and sped off. What happened next was caught on surveillance footage. As the truck approached the Juarez-Lincoln International Bridge, heading toward Mexico, Ramirez made a desperate attempt to escape. The video showed him sitting in the passenger seat with a bloodied face. He managed to open the door and tried to jump out of the moving vehicle. But before he could get away, the men inside grabbed him and pulled him back in. The truck then sped past the bridge checkpoint, ignoring the attendant, and crossed into Mexico. Investigators later found a blood-stained shirt and a pair of pants along the road near the bridge. It was clear that Ramirez had been beaten badly. His family reported him missing, and the FBI quickly got involved in the case. They identified one of the kidnappers as Jonathan Cabriales, who was arrested just a few days later when he tried to cross back into the US. Cabriales later confessed that he and 3 other men had kidnapped Ramirez. He also admitted that he knew Ramirez had stolen money from the cartel. But even with this information, authorities still don't know what happened to Ramirez after he was taken to Mexico. But he wasn't the only one who made a fatal mistake. Some corrupt police officers thought they could outsmart a cartel. In November 2023, a group of Tijuana police officers carried out a raid on a cartel stash house in a gated community. They were supposed to seize drugs as part of an official operation, but instead of turning, they decided to keep it for themselves. Inside the house, they found 20 kilos of cocaine, worth a huge amount of money. Instead of doing their jobs, they saw an opportunity to make a profit. The officers thought they could sell the cocaine without anyone noticing. They thought they could steal from one of the most powerful cartels in the world, the Sinaloa cartel, and get away with it. It didn't take long for the cartel to realize their shipment was missing. A few days later, a leaked phone call between a cartel member and a police commander surfaced. The cartel member demanded that the drugs be returned. He made it clear that there would be consequences if they didn't. But the officers refused to give the drugs back, thinking they could get away with it. That was the worst decision they could have made. The cartel wasted no time in sending a message. One by one, the officers started turning up dead. 6 officers were brutally murdered. Some were tortured before they were killed, while others were executed in public. Their bodies were left out as a warning to anyone else who might think about crossing the cartel. The violence didn't stop there. More officers were attacked, and 5 others were seriously injured. The entire police force in Tijuana was on high alert, knowing that anyone linked to the stolen cocaine could be next. Even the police chief admitted that some of his officers had gotten too deep into criminal activities, making themselves easy targets. But what happens when you steal from a cartel leader who doesn't tolerate betrayal? Let's talk about Eduardo Ravelo. Eduardo Ravelo was one of the most feared cartel enforcers in Mexico. He was the leader of Barrio Azteca, a gang that worked closely with the Juarez cartel. Under his rule, loyalty was everything. Ravelo was known for being brutal. If someone stole from him or the cartel, he made sure they paid the price. One of his own gang members once tried to steal, thinking he could get away with it. But Ravelo found out. Instead of just punishing the man, he made an example out of him. The gang member was bound with duct tape, his wrists, ankles, and mouth all tightly sealed. Then, Ravelo handed him over to the cartel's enforcers. No one ever saw him again. Are now preparing a lawsuit for moral damages against the state attorney general's office and the government of Yucatan. But Ravelo wasn't just loyal to the cartel. He was power hungry. In 2008, he decided he wanted to be in charge. Instead of waiting his turn, he took matters into his own hands. He brutally attacked his own boss, stabbing him multiple times before shooting him in the neck. That's how he secured his place as the leader of Barrio Azteca. From then on, everyone knew that crossing Ravelo meant certain death.
Les pongo el caso de este joven que fue ultrajado, asesinado en Mérida. Eso es un crimen de odio.
I present to you the case of this young man who was violated and murdered in Mérida. As a cartel enforcer, he was involved in drug trafficking, murder, extortion, and other crimes. His gang operated on both sides of the US-Mexico border, controlling smuggling routes and eliminating anyone who got in the way. Even from inside prison, his gang members continued their criminal activities, sending money back to him. For years, Ravelo managed to escape law enforcement. He was so desperate to stay hidden that he reportedly had plastic surgery to change his face. He even altered his fingerprints to avoid being identified. In 2009, the FBI placed him on their 10 most wanted list, offering a reward for any information leading to his arrest.
Un juez federal vinculó a proceso a Eduardo Ravelo Rodríguez, el Tablas, presunto líder del grupo criminal Barrio Azteca, quien se encuentra en la lista de los 10 más buscados por el FBI.
A federal judge has indicted Eduardo Ravelo Rodríguez, also known as El Tablas, the alleged leader of the criminal group Barrio Azteca. He is on the FBI's list of the 10 most wanted fugitives, with a reward of $100,000 offered for his capture. But in 2018, his luck finally ran out. After years of running, Mexican authorities tracked him down in Uruapan, Michoacán. He was arrested and taken into custody, bringing an end to his reign of terror. And in the world of drug cartels, even family members aren't safe from betrayal. Ismael El Mayo, Zambada Garcia, one of the most powerful leaders of the Sinaloa cartel, proved this when he ordered the murder of his own nephew, Eliseo Imperial Castro. Castro collected money from drug sales without his uncle's permission, something the cartel considered stealing. Imperial Castro thought he was just doing business. He went around collecting debts from people who owed the cartel money. But the problem was that he did this without El Mayo's approval. In a cartel, everything has to go through the boss, and acting independently is seen as a serious crime. It didn't matter that he was family. He broke the rules, and the punishment was death. The exact amount of money Imperial Castro took without permission is unknown, but it was enough to make El Mayo furious. Cartels are extremely strict when it comes to money, and any sign of disloyalty or dishonesty is met with immediate and brutal punishment. Not long after his actions, Imperial Castro was found dead inside a vehicle in Culiacan, Mexico. The message was clear. No one, not even a blood relative, could steal from the cartel and live to tell the story. His murder was a warning to others. If someone as close as El Mayo's nephew could be killed, anyone could be next.
10 big wads of cash, guns, and an easy profit. Experts say that's the message Mexican drug cartels are sharing on social media to recruit teenagers into the world.
But what happens when an American teenager gets caught in cartel business? Let's talk about Danny. At just 19 years old, Danny was pulled into a dangerous world he didn't fully understand. Living in Arizona, he was recruited by a cartel to work as a drug mule, smuggling drugs across the US-Mexico border. At first, things seemed easy. He made several successful trips, transporting illegal substances without getting caught. The cartel trusted him, and he felt like he was part of something big. But that trust didn't last long. One day, the cartel suspected that Danny had stolen from their shipments. He had no idea what was coming next. Without warning, he was kidnapped by the very people he had been working for. What followed was a nightmare beyond anything he could have imagined. The cartel wanted a confession, and they were willing to torture him until they got it. First, they waterboarded him, making him feel like he was drowning over and over again. Then, they took a granite slab and crushed his fingers, shattering the bones. The pain was unbearable, but Danny kept insisting that he hadn't stolen anything. Despite all the torture, he never admitted to stealing. In the end, the cartel let him go, probably because they weren't completely sure he was guilty. But his nightmare wasn't over. He had survived, but he was broken, physically and mentally. Even after all of this, Danny found himself back in the same cycle. A while later, he was caught trying to smuggle drugs again. This time, instead of going to prison, he was given a second chance. Due to the pandemic, he was sent to a rehab program instead. It was there that he finally realized he needed to change his life. Today, Danny is sober, employed, and has started a family. He was lucky to escape the cartel's grasp, but not everyone gets that chance. Which story shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more insane crime stories.